People and culture. They're two words we hear all the time in business, but if I'm honest, I think they're two of the most misunderstood. Because when many founders hear people and culture, they automatically think HR, hiring, policies, performance reviews. You know the drill. But that's not what I think about at all. When I think about people and culture, I think about growth. Because here's what I've learned. You can't scale a business without intentionally scaling your leadership, your people, and your culture. And if you don't intentionally design how those things grow together, your business starts to run you instead of you running your business. Welcome to the People Side of Business, the podcast for female founders learning how to lead, manage, and scale a team with confidence. I'm Lindsay White, leadership coach, team strategist, and fractional HR expert. And each week, we tackle the real leadership challenges business owners face every day. From difficult conversations and employee performance issues to hiring mistakes, team dynamics, and building a workplace culture that actually supports business growth. Because the truth is, nobody teaches founders how to lead people when their business starts to grow. And figuring it out the hard way can be exhausting. This show is here to change all that. So if you're ready to become a stronger leader, make better people decisions, and build a business that doesn't depend on you carrying everything alone, you're in the right place. Let's do this. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the People Side of Business. I am so glad to have you with me this week. Over the last few episodes, we've really been building a conversation around sustainable business growth. We've talked about stepping into leadership. We've talked about the LPC method and why I think leadership, people, strategy, and culture are the three foundations for sustainable growth. And today, I want to answer one of the questions that I hear more than almost any other. And that is, Lindsay, what does this actually look like? How do I build a people strategy? Like, what exactly are you talking about? And it's not just one that supports the business that you have today. We don't just build strategy for today. We build strategy that supports the business you're growing tomorrow. Because this is where I see so many founders struggle. Not because they don't have a really great vision, not because they aren't totally capable, but because they're trying to build tomorrow's business with today's organizational structure. And that's tricky. So one of the biggest mistakes I see founders make is assuming that growth automatically creates the team they need. It doesn't. Growth creates more work. A people strategy creates the team that actually can deliver that work. Those two things are completely different, and they require two completely different solutions. And when we're busy as founders, our instinct usually is to hire. We think, I just need another set of hands. I need someone to get this stuff off my plate. I just need help. And my friend, those are totally reasonable things to be thinking. They're absolutely true. But before we ask who we need to hire, I think there's a much more important question. And that is, who does this business need over the next 1, 2, or even 3 years? Because once we're clear about that, then we can start designing the team that will make it possible. Your business plan tells you where your business is going, but your people strategy determines whether you're going to get there or not. And I really want you to stop and think about that for a moment. As founders, we spend an incredible amount of time developing strategies for every area of our business. And I know this because I've done this, right? We have a marketing strategy. We have a sales plan. We have an operational strategy. Most of us have some kind of financial plan as well. We know those things are essential if we want our business to grow. But very few founders have invested the same level of time and strategic thinking into their people strategy. And I think that that's one of the biggest reasons why businesses stall as they begin to scale. Because every one of those strategies, whether it's your marketing, your sales, your operations, even your customer experience, every single one of them relies on people to bring them to life. Your business strategy can only ever be executed through your team. So if we're not intentionally thinking about who we need, when we need them, how they'll contribute, how they'll grow, and how they'll lead alongside us, then we're leaving out one of the most important growth levers and we're leaving it completely to chance. That's why I believe your people strategy deserves a seat at the strategic table. This is not just an HR conversation. This is a business growth conversation. Because when your people strategy is intentionally connected to your business plan, something really powerful happens. You stop hiring because you're overwhelmed and overworked. You stop reacting every time your business grows. Instead, you can begin to anticipate what's next. You begin building the organization that your future business is going to need instead of constantly trying to catch up to the business you've already created. And that is exactly the work I did with Krista. So Krista is a founder I admire tremendously. She has an incredible business. She has amazing clients. In fact, I am one of them. She has a fabulous reputation. She has a committed team, really strong revenue growth. From the outside, everything looked like it was totally working. But underneath the surface, she was carrying something. She was carrying almost everything. All the important decisions, all the client issues, a lot of the major deliverables, and of course, all the opportunities. And it's not that she was running out of ideas. This woman is incredibly creative. She was running out of capacity. And I think so many founders can relate to that. Your business is really growing, which is exactly what you have worked so hard for. But instead of feeling more freedom, you feel more pressure. Instead of feeling excited, you feel stretched. And instead of leading the business, it really feels like the business is leading you. So Chris and I got to spend a full day together doing something founders rarely give themselves permission to do. We completely stepped out of the day-to-day. No emails, no Slack messages, no client work. It was awesome. We worked on the business instead of in it. And we started with something that might surprise you. We didn't start with hiring or job descriptions or even start with our team at all. We started with our vision. Because until we're crystal clear about where the business is going, how can we possibly know who needs to come along on the journey? So what we did was talk about what she was trying to build. What was the impact she wanted to have? What did success look like 3 or 4 or even 10 years from now? Then we talked about her mission, why her business existed in the first place. What was the difference that she wanted to make for her clients? Then we moved on to her values. And we're not talking about words on a wall. We're talking about behaviors, right? How did she want people to show up in her business? How did she want her clients to experience things? How did she want her team to work together? Because values aren't just words on a website. They are the behaviors people experience every single day, our team and our clients. And then once we had clarity around those important pieces, we really started to think about designing her organization, not just her next hire, the organization. Who would she need 6 months, 12 months, 24 months from now? What roles needed to exist? What capabilities did she need in her business? What skills and experience? And of course, what kind of behaviors? How were these people going to show up for her? Who are these people? Were they consultants or contractors or full-time employees? How would each role evolve as the business grew? And then we spent time on what I think is the most important part. That was Krista's role. Because as her business was evolving, she had to evolve too. And she was smart enough to realize that the leader who had built the business that she had today was not the same leader that was going to take it to the next level. And she wasn't simply moving from founder to CEO. She was becoming a strategic CEO, someone who could intentionally design the future of her business instead of simply reacting to growth. And when we finished that incredible day together, and I'm telling you, it was magic. She didn't just have a people strategy. She had increased clarity. Her confidence was absolutely dialed in. She had a roadmap for how her business would grow and how her team would evolve and who she needed to become to lead it. And here's the beautiful part. She still uses that roadmap today. because a people strategy isn't something you create once and then just put up on the shelf. It becomes the roadmap you return to every time your business reaches its next stage of growth. One of the biggest shifts I see founders make through this work isn't simply building a better team. It's becoming a different kind of leader. And I've mentioned it already. It's about becoming a strategic CEO. A founder is often consumed by the day-to-day. You're solving problems, you're answering questions, making decisions, putting out fires, really carrying the weight of the business on your shoulders. And if I'm honest, it can kind of feel like you're only the only, if I'm honest, it can feel like you're the only person who truly understands how everything fits together. I get that. I feel that way sometimes too. A strategic CEO still cares deeply about the business, but they spend less time reacting and more time designing. They're thinking 6, 12, even 24 months ahead. And they're asking really different questions. So things like, what capabilities will this business need next? What leadership do I need to develop inside of my team? Where am I still being the bottleneck? And how do I create more ownership and accountability on my team today that's going to drive the business tomorrow? Instead of asking, how do I survive this week? Like, how do I get to Friday? A strategic CEO is asking, how do I intentionally build the business I want 3 years from now? That is a completely different way of leading, my friends. And it's really transformational. So yes, we build a people strategy, but more importantly, what we're doing is creating a roadmap for the evolution of your business and your leadership all at the same time. Because as your business grows, you got to grow alongside it. Now, you may be thinking, okay, that sounds great, Lindsay, but does a people strategy really last? Like, is it really going to grow with my business? And honestly, I think that's a fair question because businesses do evolve. Markets change, teams grow, our service offering evolves. And as founders, we have to consistently adapt. So does the strategy actually continue to serve us? Great question. And I want to tell you about another client of mine, Brandy, who would tell you that it's an unequivocal yes. So Brandy and I built her people strategy together, I don't know, more than 2 years ago. It's been a while. And the funny thing is we recently had a chance to reconnect. We had a chat. And without me even asking her about it, she said something that really made me smile. She said, Lindsay, I still use my people strategy all the time. Now think about that for a minute. 2 years later, her business has evolved. Her services have changed and her team looks different. She's certainly grown as a leader. And yet she still comes back to that people strategy we designed. Not because nothing has changed, but because it's given her a roadmap for making strategic decisions as her business continues to evolve. Every time she's thinking about hiring or restructuring her team, every time she's wondering whether she could create a new role or shift an existing one, even when she's thinking about what her business needs next, she comes back to that people strategy roadmap we created, not because it gives her all the answers, but because it reminds her of the questions she needs to be asking. And I think that that is an important distinction. A people strategy isn't just a document. It's not something you create once, you sort of check it off the list and put it on the shelf. It's a decision-making framework. It's a roadmap. It's something you can come back to over and over again as your business evolves. Because growth isn't one decision. Growth is 1,000 tiny decisions. And when those decisions are grounded in a clear vision, a thoughtful people strategy, and intentional leadership, they become a whole lot easier to make. One of the biggest objections I hear from founders is this. Lindsay, I'd love to do something like this, but I really don't have the time. And honestly, my friends, I completely understand. I mean, I'm a founder too. I know what it's like when every hour in your day is already spoken for, when your inbox is overflowing, when your team needs you, when your clients need you, when there are 100 things competing for your attention. Taking a half or even a full day to work on your business can feel impossible. But here's what I've learned. The founders who build businesses that continue to scale aren't the ones who spend all their time working in the business. They're the ones who intentionally create space to work on it. Because a half day of strategic thinking can save months of reactive decision making. Think about that. How many hours have you spent over the last year dealing with the consequences of hiring the wrong person, or not hiring soon enough, or promoting someone before they were ready, or holding on to someone because they were loyal, even though the business had outgrown their role? Or how many conversations have you had because expectations weren't clear? And what kind of time did that cost you? How many decisions have landed back on your desk because your team didn't feel confident making them? Those aren't people problems. My friend, they're strategy problems. And when we solve them strategically, everything changes. Your confidence changes. Your clarity changes. Your leadership changes. And your team starts to change too. Because when people understand the vision, when they understand expectations, and those are really clear, when they understand the role they play in making that vision real, they stop completing tasks and they start taking ownership. And that's what every founder wants. Not a team that waits to be told what to do. A team that thinks, contributes, challenges, innovates, and leads right alongside you. That's the real return on investment when we work on our business, not just in it. So if you've been listening to these last few episodes and you found yourself thinking, yeah, that's the business I want to build. I want to build something sustainable. But you're not quite sure how to turn that vision into a practical plan. That's exactly why I created my strategy intensive. Together, we spend half day or full day working on your business. We begin with your vision, because when you're not clear about where you're going, you really don't know how to get there. We talk about your mission. We explore your values and the behaviors that make those real. We'll look at your business plan, where you're trying to take the organization over the next 12, 24, 36 months. And then we're going to design your structure that makes that future feel possible. We'll identify the roles your business needs, the capabilities that you're going to have to build or find, the skills and experience that are going to accelerate that growth. And most importantly, my friend, we're going to spend time on you, because your business can only grow as fast and effectively as you can grow as a leader. We'll explore what it means to be a strategic CEO. What work should stay with you? What work should move to your team? Where are you still the bottleneck? And how do we fix that? And where do you need to build leadership capacity for yourself and for others? How do you create more ownership and accountability so that your team can truly lead alongside you? And by the end of our time together, you'll leave with far more than a people strategy. You're going to leave with clarity. You're going to leave with incredible confidence. You're going to have that practical roadmap that I've already talked about, and a really clear vision for how your business will grow, how your team's going to evolve, how you're going to evolve as the leader your business needs next. Because that's really what this work is about. It's not about hiring or org charts. It's not even about the people strategy itself. It's about intentionally designing the business that you have been envisioning, the one that is in your head and your heart, instead of just hoping that you're going to get there. If that feels like the right next step for you, you'll find all the details about my strategy intensives in the show notes. We'll make sure it's there for you. I would love the opportunity to spend that time with you and help you build the business that you've been dreaming about and you've been working so hard for. So if there's one thing I hope you take away from today's conversation, it's this. Growth shouldn't happen by accident. It should happen by design. And as founders, we spend so much time planning for things like sales, marketing, operations, finance. But businesses that scale sustainably also have to plan for their people. They have to plan for their culture. And they have to plan for leaders that they are going to become along the way. Because at the end of the day, sustainable growth isn't about growing faster. It's really about growing with intention. And the businesses that continue to thrive aren't the ones that simply hire more people or work harder. They're the ones that intentionally develop leadership through thoughtful people strategy and create a culture where people can do their best work. So Before you dive back into your day, here's one question I want to leave you with. If your business looked exactly the way you hoped, the one that you have in your mind 3 years from now, what would need to change in your leadership, your team, and your culture to make that possible? I know it's a big, juicy question, and I love it. If you come up with something that you feel like sharing, send me a message. Connect with me on Instagram or LinkedIn. I would love to hear what you cook up. Well, thanks for spending some of your valuable time with me today. I always appreciate you. And I'll see you next week on the people side of business. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of The People Side of Business. If this conversation resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to the show and share it with other founders in your world. And keep coming back each week for practical leadership strategies to help you lead, manage, and scale your team with more confidence. And if you're sitting in the middle of people challenges right now, whether it's leadership, team dynamics, hiring, culture, or difficult conversations, and you're realizing you don't want to figure it out alone, I'd love to support you. You can book a leadership strategy session with me through the link in the show notes or at highvoltageleadership.ca. I'd love to hear what you learned from today's episode, so come connect with me on Instagram at highvoltleadership or on LinkedIn. And remember, the people side of business is the business. I'll see you next time.
This podcast is produced, mixed, and edited by Cardinal Studio. For more information about how to start your own podcast, please visit www.cardinalstudio.co or email Mike at mike@cardinalstudio.co. You can also find the details in the show notes.